You remember dial-up internet, not just as a fact, but as a sound. That robotic screech that meant nobody touched the phone. You can still rewind a VHS in your head. You owned a CD wallet. You survived Y2K. And somehow, you also adapted to TikTok, smartphones, cloud storage, and whatever update just logged you out again. If you were born between 1976 and 1985, you're in that strange in-between zone. Not quite Gen X, not quite millennial. You had an analog childhood and a digital adulthood. You learned to type on a chunky keyboard, but now text faster than your teenage niece. You remember life before social media, but you live on it. And that split, it did something to your psychology. Today, we're unpacking the hidden mindsets of Xennials, the bridge generation, and what growing up between two worlds did to the way you think, work, love, and cope. Maybe you'll see yourself. Maybe you'll finally understand that quiet tension you've carried for years. Let's start with the analog-rooted realist. Picture this. You still prefer calling over texting for serious conversations. You trust face-to-face more than emojis. When someone says, "Let's jump on Zoom," you comply, but a small part of you misses conference rooms and handwritten notes. Xennials grew up forming identities without the constant mirror of social media. Childhood mistakes weren't documented forever. Embarrassment expired. You could reinvent yourself at a new school year without Google remembering. Psychologically, that created a stronger internal reference point. Validation came from your immediate circle, not from a feed. So as adults, you often value depth over visibility. You're skeptical of performative culture. You crave authenticity, not branding. At the same time, you adapted. You learned the tools, you use the apps, but you never fully surrendered to them. Do you notice it? That subtle resistance to living entirely online? That sense that something essential gets lost in translation. Then there's the digital survivor. You didn't ease into technology. You were thrown into it mid-development. One year you were burning CDs, the next Napster disappeared. You built MySpace profiles from scratch HTML. You watched industries collapse and reappear in new forms. That kind of rapid change wires the brain for adaptability, but also for vigilance. Xennials often carry a low-grade sense that stability is temporary. You saw the dot-com crash. The 2008 recession hit just as many of you were building careers. You were told, follow the rules, get a degree, work hard, and then the rules changed. Psychologically, this can create hypercompetence. You prepare. You back up files. You have contingency plans. You don't fully trust promises of permanence. Maybe you're the person who always thinks 2 steps ahead, or maybe you struggle to relax because you've learned subconsciously that systems can shift overnight. That's not paranoia. That's pattern recognition. Another profile? The independent attachment. Xennials were often the last generation of latchkey kids. You came home to empty houses. You made your own snacks. You figured things out alone. That independence builds resilience, but it also shapes how you connect. You might crave closeness, yet feel uncomfortable depending too heavily on someone. You value partnership, but you don't want to lose autonomy. You can handle things yourself. You've always handled things yourself. Psychologically, this can create a push-pull dynamic. You want intimacy, but not suffocation. You want support, but not supervision. Sound familiar? It's not coldness, it's conditioning. You learned early that you were capable, so now vulnerability feels like surrender, even when it's safe. Then there's the Time-Straddler. This one is subtle. You remember boredom, real boredom, long car rides with nothing but your thoughts, Saturday mornings without constant notifications. That experience shaped your attention span differently. You can still focus deeply when you choose to. You know what it feels like to be unreachable. But you also adopted the digital pace, multitasking, rapid information, infinite scrolling. The psychological tension here is fascinating. Xennials often feel overstimulated by modern life, yet they're highly skilled at navigating it. You might complain about constant notifications while checking them anyway. Part of your brain misses slowness, another part thrives on momentum. It's like living with 2 operating systems running at once. And finally, the bridge builder. Because you've lived in both cultural eras, you often understand both sides. You can relate to Gen X cynicism and millennial optimism. You remember hierarchical workplaces, and you appreciate flexible ones. In family dynamics, you're often the translator, explaining tech to older relatives, explaining nuance to younger ones. You don't fully belong to either camp, so you mediate between them. Psychologically, that can create empathy. You've seen enough change to know perspectives evolve. But it can also create identity ambiguity. Where do you fit? Too young to feel old, too old to feel young. But here's the twist. That in-between status, the thing that sometimes makes you feel displaced, is also your advantage. Research on transitional cohorts suggests that people who grow up during technological shifts often develop cognitive flexibility. You learned how to unlearn, how to pivot, how to upgrade your mental software. You remember life without GPS, you adapted to it, you survived without Google, and now you can't imagine life without it. That duality gives you perspective. You know the world can function offline, you know connection doesn't require Wi-Fi, and you know reinvention is possible because you've done it before. So maybe that's why Xennials often carry a quiet steadiness, not flashy, not loud, but adaptable. You're not shocked by change anymore, you expect it. And perhaps the deepest psychological imprint of being a Xennial is this: you witnessed the acceleration of time. You can feel how fast things move now because you remember when they didn't. That awareness might make you nostalgic. It might make you protective of your childhood memories. It might make you wary of where we're headed next. But it can also make you wise. So which profile resonates with you? The analog-rooted realist who craves depth, the digital survivor who plans for disruption, the independent attachment navigating closeness carefully, the time-straddler juggling two speeds of life, or the bridge builder translating between generations. Maybe you're a mix of all of them. If this landed somewhere personal, if it named something you felt but never articulated, that's not random. That's the psychology of growing up between worlds. Let me know which type feels most like you, or which one describes someone you know. And if you enjoy unpacking the hidden patterns behind everyday behavior, stick around. There's always more beneath the surface than we think.